Also, Ola, if I can just return to what you were saying before about, demonstrating in the UK, I don't want you to think that, how should I say, it's not because of freedom of liberation. The United Kingdom is responsible for a lot of pain, so it's all the colonialism in the Gulf and in Africa. It's the least they can do is let people demonstrate, and it's actually very strategic, because when you let people, and there's budgets and campaigns and all sorts for people to demonstrate, it eases tension. For Trump to say don't do this, it makes people, it's human nature, you want to do the opposite. But in the UK, they close off the parliament, and the security comes out, the police is actually on your side, and the music is up. It makes you feel liberated to walk the streets, but really it's just to ease us off, so we go home exhausted, have a shower, go back to bed feeling like we've done our bit, but really nothing changes, because in the meantime they are negotiating with Africa and in GCC, selling weapons and doing all sorts of damage that we are not aware of, that they're doing a lot of damage. But then taking down these statues is symbolic to some degree, but where are they going? In the GCC we don't have these statues, but the cement is in the head of the people ruling countries for decades and decades. Why? Where is the democracy? How are you going to have a voice to speak when you don't even get a pillar box to tick which party you believe in? So this country here in the UK, we might feel like we have a voice, and but it's the same difference, because you're actually lining the same pocket. We demonstrate here, this is the Great Britain, we're also lucky and grateful that we're to be here, even though we're not here for the weather, we're here because of the damage done to our countries. And then what happens? We earn money and we build and we help back home, and back home are trying to leave to come to the West, and the West is actually buying Africa. If you see the real estate, the cotton, diamonds, there's a lot of investment from the West in Africa now, just as Africans want to leave to go and work as immigrants in the very countries that won't recognize where they're from. It's not freedom of speech. It's disillusion, and it's a waste of time sometimes, because it's just to kill time. And it's just like this Black Lives Matter thing. It's not a hashtag. It can't be a hashtag. We cannot let this be a hashtag. Just like black is not just a trend for a stage or a front cover or a movie. I mean, now what's great out of this, there'll be a Wakanda 2 coming out soon. There'll be more makeup ranges in the stores. There'll be more diversity officers. I mean, what the hell's a diversity officer? What is that, a race police? What do they do? That should just be HR. What's a diversity officer? But so many conversations are going to be had with, we need a diversity officer. No, you need the whole company to be anti-racism, and then you won't need to have a guard, in head office. We have to challenge these narratives all the time and turn them over, because a month ago I wanted to demonstrate. Now I'm realized it's it's just to wear me out. So I go home like I'm done,
Well, so I 100% agree with what you're saying. The question is, what's happening? So yeah, maybe there's not like an outcome, like there hasn't been like an evident change, but at least things are coming out. So for example, in the NHS, there were some reports on diversity statistics. So these statistics came to light. They were always there, but no one really knew about it. They were archived in the middle of nowhere, where there was statistical evidence that people of colour who are BAME are less likely to progress in the NHS. People who are BAME are 1.4 times more likely to be bullied or whatever. So these things came to light. I'm not saying these things were dealt with or have changed, but at least now we know it exists because we can talk about it. So in the Gulf or in the Middle East or whatever, they can't even highlight that these are problems so that other people who are black know it's a problem. Like when I did an interview about it and I spoke about it, and people messaged me, they were like, oh, we didn't hear about this report, we didn't know about this report. But at least because we can speak up about it, at least people know it's happening. Do you know what I mean? And I 100% get where you're coming from. So what, they know what's going to happen. But awareness is, like Ramey said, it's baby steps, but at least that awareness is there. My question is, when are they going to be able to start talking about it so they can even start taking baby steps?
Yeah, I think it's still unfortunate at the moment, a lot with a bit of denial, like touching upon what Colette was saying, on not being embarrassed about being called racist. You can see that in blackface, for example, how blackface is so commonly used in Arab media, even on big Arabic channels. Whereas I think maybe in the West, people are going, hold on, our image, we can't use blackface. Let's apologize for the blackface we did 20 years ago. Whereas I saw, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Egyptian actress that was called out for blackface for she said it was, she didn't even try and apologize. She said it was comedy. For the people that took offense, this is comedy. Like, I don't understand why. And you know, the reason why I think it's so frustrating and offensive is that, let's just say you're ignorant enough to think that that is a way to represent a Sudanese person. You look Sudanese. Sudan is so diverse. Don't tell me that you, as an Egyptian, a neighbor of Sudan, don't know that you could look Sudanese very easily without blackface. You know, and so I think that's a good example of how it differs in the West and in our region.
Yeah. So true. So true. I think that unless Arabs are part of this conversation, that it's not even about accountability. It's like, do you see us? Because I've heard too much for me to unhear and give this to even think that this is a misunderstanding or people don't know. They must know. And so they don't get to sit out of this. Look, we're talking about something, this conversation, this is great that we're starting this today, but there needs to be some point where we do just hold people not even accountable in terms of like, oh, you did this and you did this to me. Like, do you understand that when you have an East Asian nanny in your house and you rotate them every 8 months, that your children are going to grow up and not respect these group of people? Do you understand that this skin bleeds when you cut it? Actually, I had somebody once say to me after a live that we went talking about race. I'm like, I don't know, I'm talking about race all day. When we went off the Zoom, she said to me, oh gosh, you must be so awful. I know exactly what it's like to be misunderstood. You know, I get it all the time for having blonde hair. So I said, yeah, exactly, right? So I said, so you're likening my skin color to your blonde hair. So when you cut your hair, does it bleed? And she just looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, when you cut your hair, does it bleed? And she said, no. And I said, well, my skin does. You know, and if you think that you're even a natural blonde, don't insult my intelligence even more. This is a choice you've made, whereas you will know I'm black before I open my mouth. And that's not easy.
I went through the same thing, so hospital, because they were racist and quite openly racist. And when I put in the complaint, I had a meeting with one of the deputies and the chief pharmacist, and they kept saying, oh, well, how do you know this behavior is racist? How do you know this behavior is racist? And I asked them, I was like, how do you know it's not racist?
Right.
And my question, and I said to him, I was in floods of tears. Don't see this brave face, like having to undergo that right now, working for the NHS, especially during COVID times. You shouldn't have to tolerate this kind of thing. And so I'm sitting there trying to explain or trying to make them understand, like, you know, like racism and the chief pharmacist had the audacity to say, when I said, you'll never understand, like, you know, being racially profiled, he had the audacity to say, he was like, how dare you? When people find out my grandmother is Scottish, I don't hear the end of it. So don't you dare tell me I don't know what it feels like to be I don't know what it feels like to be racially attacked. And I was like, how would anyone ever know that your grandmother is Scottish or Irish or whatever? Like, at least you retaliated. Ana wallahi shiddat ma, his comment was moronic. I didn't even know what to say to him. I was just like, it's a time to go now. Like, and this is the kind of mentality they have. It's like, sometimes I do feel like it's a losing battle.
No,
like
it's
sometimes
not a
I
losing
do.
battle. No, we have to, like, I mean, I'll tell you what I did with that. So the personnel, like I said to you, was blonde. So she likened my skin color to, but it's actually racism that I overheard as an outsider in, because the only racism, you know, it's like, why? You know, it's absolutely awful. But what I did was I had an all black catwalk, for which I got suspended for. And this was back, it's 20 years ago, in 2000. So that was 20 years ago. I mean, them now talking about how fair they are and what they're doing to change, or even 20 years ago, the idea of having a black catwalk was something that they weren't willing to swallow. And so when I told them it was all documented and that I was going to take them to court, they offered me a role of a weather girl. So I'm like, oh, lucky me. So I'm like, no, wow. See, this is where you understand what you're doing, and you're doing it on purpose. And so before, when I said go down someone like a town break, this is what I'm talking about. It's like sometimes negotiating is just, you're wasting your breath. They know it.
It reminds me of the whole thing of Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter with the police officers. And it's like, yes, I understand that police officers are, you know, their job is dangerous. It's not safe by any means. But you know what? When you go home, you take off that badge and the uniform. I don't get to take off my skin. I don't get to take off my facial features, my ethnic background, and my heritage. Those are things I'm stuck with 24/7. So how dare you compare a job that you chose? Nobody forced you to be a police officer. You know what I mean? Just like I was, you know what I mean? And I didn't have the option of being African. I don't have the option of my facial features having big lips or whatever.
Actually, one thing that I
wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. You know,
one thing that I think is sometimes resisting the Black Lives Matter movement in the Arab world is that sometimes when you talk about it to Arabs, they will say, oh, but we get called terrorist in the West. And it's like, first and foremost, I'm from like a mile away, you can see that I'm black. And that, you know, that instantly puts a target on my back, you know? And the truth of the matter is it's not the same. It isn't the same. Because, it
just isn't, because I mean, you are black and you are Muslim. That intersection, you know, like, it's a double whammy. You know, they're complaining about being one dimension of that. Okay, but when I appear at the airport and I'm black and I'm Arab, then, you know, you can't compare that. You just can't. And they need to understand that cannot be compared.
Because I'm seeing actually the Black Lives Matter movement being hijacked by a lot of this. You know, sometimes people are going, oh, well, let's use this opportunity to talk about how us white Arabs experience racism in the West. I think that's quite unfortunate, actually. And that's where I think people are missing the point in the Arab region. And it's another kind of way of denying it, really.
Because you go home to Arabia and you're amongst your light Arabs and you are home. But we go home to Arabia and we're still discriminated against. So we're discriminated both ways, and it is our 24/7 experience. That is what needs to be understood. And just on what, you know, like, just steps forward and where we need to address these things. I really, really think that, you know, there are people people look at Western solutions and they always talk about, I mean, in the region, and they always talk about how it can't be applied to the East. And it gets on my nerves, because as long as we go, oh, that's a Western problem, then we can't use, and we can't be using their solutions, we're stripped of nothing. There is always something that we can take out of their book in terms of the movement. There is always something that can be taken and applied to us. And one is definitely documentation and archiving, so that we are aware and we know ourselves better. And we know the amount of discrimination and all of the injustices that we experience, so that we can measure it and that we can identify each other and gather and see our numbers and see how much the general consensus are. And then I think, just gathering from this conversation, perhaps we need to take the power out of their hands. And we need to take it into our own hands and start our own collectives where we can move forward in tackling these things one by one, whether it's on the legislative side or the representation side. It's a lot to ask for permission to go through the doors. It's a lot to ask for permission to have a seat at the table. And it's a lot to ask for them to represent our stories, or to allow us to represent our stories. And so, I think about things like Dukkan, where I just go, well, we do need to take things out into our own hands. We do need to create, we do need to control and create our own narratives.
100%.
Yeah, I think I can't remember who it was. I think maybe Sara was saying, like, using our platforms. Alhamdulillah, I just want to say that this has been a really great opportunity. Thank you, Rayan, for putting it together. I would never have met these people, and I'm hoping that this is kind of like a motivation for us to kind of use our platforms to really talk about this, because it is an issue. And then, like, through networking and collectively working together, inshallah, we can plan or come up with something that we can do to further it. Sara, I think your idea of getting like maybe a discussion with Arabs, I don't know what kind of platforms they will have, I think it would be really, really, really interesting to hear their perspective, whether it be positive or negative, Allahu Alam, I don't know, but I think that would be extremely interesting, just like they do it between they've done it numerous occasions between Black Americans and white Americans. It will be extremely interesting to see what kind of narratives they come up with between blacks and, like, your Arabs, light-skinned Arabs. Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
And the selection of the people at the table as well matters a lot. Like, who do you bring forward to speak on it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I wouldn't even know who to bring. Would it be doctors? Would it be journalists? Would it be like, I wouldn't even know where to start, because everybody has kind of different black forms. I think I might use that for something. Different platforms, but maybe people from the art industry, whether they be podcast musicians, geniuses, like whatever. I think it'd be very, very interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, me and Salia, when we were organizing this at the beginning, we struggled a little bit, to be honest, because we thought, okay, we want to make sure everyone has space to speak, but at the same time, trying to steer it with too many questions can sometimes filter the discussion, because there's so many layers to it, like you guys have said, and you need kind of an open room discussion kind of space. And we also said that actually it's almost unfair to put it down to 1 hour, and so we really kind of thought, maybe in the future we could continue doing this as a series, because there's no way you can like compact everything on this topic under one session.
I just
wanted to, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, it's so important to keep the conversation going. It cannot stop here. We cannot go, we've had the conversation, great, and then leave it to somebody else to pick up. I think it's up to all of us and many others who are not a part of this panel today to keep speaking, and for our allies to keep speaking, because if they would have it, and I speak about the patriarchy, if they would have it, things would stay the same as it is.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say that this first conversation was going to be the most awkward, and I'm really proud of everybody, and for what I've learned today. I thank everyone, but also I don't know how often you guys do this, but I literally have to lie down sometimes afterwards, because the emotional labor of thinking, and then you're checking yourself, you're checking my family, is this learning from education or from my home? Is this what I want to take forward? Is this who I am? Who am I? COVID. There's so much going on right now that for the last month or so, like I said to you, in between each Zooms, I've learned to literally lie down for 10 minutes, because this is exhausting and this is difficult, and this is part of building the marathon. It's not a race, it's a marathon. And I'm just really grateful for everybody that I've met here today, and just thank you, really. And it's going to be hard. It's all good things are like that, hardest at the beginning, and I've never listened to anything like this, and this is a moment for me. Thank you.
No, likewise. Well, like to have people go on, Ramey. I'll interrupt you later after the Zoom is over.
No, I just want to thank the organizers for bringing this together, because the group of people here, you know, I learned from everyone, you know, and I think it's great that we keep the conversation going, and for us to control our own narratives, right? Not to let other people control our narratives and tell our stories for us. We have to tell our own stories, and this is why these events and discussions are important in the long run. They're not just important now, right? You don't know who you can inspire that's watching this that will go and make something like it, which is completely fine, right? We're not trying to control any sort of idea that this is only our thing or whatever platform. We need as many voices that have gone through similar things that we've gone through to express, you know, their voices. And so thank you for the organizers. It's been amazing, and I'm just thankful for everyone here, you know, and hopefully we can collaborate in the future.
Inshallah, yeah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I mean, thank you for putting the time in this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
You know the freaky thing? Can I just say one more thing, and I promise I'll stop talking? My daughter is listening on this from my parents' house, and it suddenly occurred to me that I've said stuff on here that we haven't talked about at home when she was sitting right next to me enough. And I thought that I am a big mouth, and I'm telling her every single day, lazim kida, lazim kida, lazim kida. And it's just, I'm just now reflecting. I'm just like, ana qassarta fi haqqa, because fi hajat kan lazim, I should have prepared her, and I didn't want her to learn it from an iPhone. But then at the same time, I want her to see me on the same size and scale as each and one of you. I hope that she's found an uncle and an aunt that she can reach out for, whether it be Instagram or on the phone.
Definitely.
I know that she's
hey, everybody else can be auntie, but I'm cousin, and I'm not old enough to be auntie. ما تكبريني ساي. Hey.
Don't even start. Let's do ageism one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that would be a subject, a whole panel on its own. But I absolutely, I wanted to thank you guys, because at the moment I feel like I'm seriously lacking from my brothers and sisters in the GCC region, and it's just fantastic that I can I can still reach out to you. And I also wanted to point out that my urge goes back to Sudan as well. Yay! So I'm definitely in the mix. But you have my contacts, each and every single one of you. If there's anything that I can ever offer, whether it's just a chat or creatively or life, my line is always open.
Ooh, I might take you up on that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Me too.
That's awesome. On the real, thank you guys so much. I mean, shout out to Rayan and Sadia for putting this together. And like, I think for me, this was, it sucks. What sucks about it, sometimes you feel like you're the only one having these conversations, or like you feel like you're siloed, and then realizing, oh, there's more of us, right? And this power in numbers that I always really enjoy a lot, and seeing your faces and having these conversations with all of you kind of really sets that in. Like, Sarah, I know exactly where you're coming from. We were talking about, as soon as you're done with these sessions, you feel like you need to lie down. I mean, the times, not only do I lie, but like switch off my phone, go under the covers, and I just don't want to deal with society anymore, you know? But then, you know, find a way to kind of dust yourself off, wake up and do it all over again the next day and the next day. And as exhausting as it is, I feel like it's sort of a responsibility that has been bestowed, that we have to, I mean, you know, do our best constantly to be honest and live up to, and, you know, educate with our families, with the people at home, and just try do our best to keep this conversation going. And I already have a lot of ideas of how I'd like to do that. And this is, I think we already spoke about this earlier, like it's always an open invitation at any point in time for any ideas, any questions. It's something I'm constantly trying to push for. And now with Zoom and all different kinds of technology, like it's always possible. Like I have my studio set up at home that I would do record sessions with people for, just to find ways to keep this conversation going. And you know, to the organizers, thank you guys so much for putting this together, and like you and Rayan and Sadia. And if there's anywhere I can support, whether it's ideation or even if it's like technical support to like, oh, well, let's try this, right? My team's available as well. Like everybody's down with this movement. And you know, if you need sound engineers or whatever it may be, I'm happy to support in any way I can.
Aww,
so kind.
I can feel the love.
I can feel the love.
Yeah, really. No,
Always.
that's
Love
so sweet.
Guys, I'm here as well. Anytime anyone needs anything, I'm trying to think, what am I going to offer? But you're going to know I'm going to be talking so much. If you can get a word in, definitely.
That's amazing, honestly.
For sure. I love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You make me proud to be an Afro-Arab.
Yay! Oh,
me too.
So proud.
Was there no questions? I thought there was going to be no questions.
Do you know what? We got a few questions actually. I'll just bring up one. You actually answered a lot of the things.
Oh, good.
Good. That's why I tried to like take them, but you answered most of them. And the conversation flowed so beautifully. So thank you for that.
Good.
There was one person, Shema Saleh, who in response to Sara Ali was saying that it's things having to count as an expat when you live in the GCC for decades. And I guess she was saying, how can one be a guest for that long?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when we understand hospitality.
Hey,
right? Exactly.
We're all about hospitality. Basinto, expat.
Yes.
Into immigrant.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And for all the people listening and tuning in, though, if you have any questions, you can always, I'm sure everyone else would agree, you can always reach out to us privately on here.
Slide in a DM.
Yeah. Slide in a DM.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing. If anyone who's listening in has any questions, do fire it to me and Salia as well.
As well as any advice or support that you're seeking. If you are a Black Arab looking or within the region that we are covering at the moment, and need any guidance or support, please feel free as well. I'm sure the rest of you would feel the same.
Yeah,
definitely.
And if you are an ally and looking to see to support us in whatever way, let us know. We can advise.
Good. Halas, inshallah. All stay in contact and enjoy your, what time is it? Afternoons, is it?
Is it still afternoon, is it?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Let's see. Yeah.
This couldn't be wrapped up more beautifully. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yalla.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.